Why study meditation scientifically?
You could ask, why study meditation? I would put that as part of a bigger question. Why study the human mind? But after all, the mind is what we've got. I see the world, I act on the world, I reflect on the world through my mind. And we have our ordinary mind, which is very much a cultural construction as well as a biological one. But it turns out that's not enough for most humans. We need altered states of consciousness. We need, at least temporarily, quite different ways of seeing things to get a feeling of greater meaning about what life is about. So you look back in history, people have always engaged in ways of creating altered states of consciousness as part of their search for meaning. For some, that's getting drunk, and that comes at a high price tag. Drugs of one sort or another, meditation, rituals that do it for some people. Yeah, so we want to know, we want to feel deeper meaning. That's why meditation and altered states.
How do you think the field of meditation research is changing?
In 1969, I published my book, Altered States of Consciousness. And there was nothing like it around, but a lot of people, young people especially, were trying drugs and meditation and things like that. People had no understanding of what the hell was going on. Why did people do this kind of thing? I included a section in there on research on meditation because I'd read a lot of very unusual literature that people didn't even know existed. And I proudly boasted in the section on meditation that I was including 2/3 of the English language literature on meditation, which sounded very impressive till you realized it was 2 of the 3 studies that existed. There was essentially zero research. Now I'm proud to say, practically 50 years later, there's so many studies on meditation that I'm now profoundly ignorant. But I'll also add that most of these studies have been carried out with kind of a mindset of, is this good for your health? And it can be quite good for your health in all sorts of ways. But I'm more interested in meditation as part of this search for meaning, part of the search for something deeper, the spiritual aspects of life. That we need a lot more meditation on. And this program that Noetic Sciences is sponsoring is pointing out that we need the research on the spiritual, psychic aspects of meditation. It's good that it lets you sleep better, makes you less anxious, and all that sort of thing. I'm all for that sort of thing, but if you don't get deep meaning in life, you start to do crazy things in a desperate search for meaning, and that's not good.
Do you think the field of meditation research will move toward a view in which we see consciousness as something deeper than just an emergent property of the brain?
I can't quite say official, but let's say the most common view of consciousness is that it's totally materialistic, that somehow consciousness is produced by the brain. We're a very materialistic culture, and for good reasons. We are materially incredibly rich and progressed compared to where humankind was. But that ignores evidence that consciousness can do things that material laws and processes don't actually result in. So I think we need to move toward a view that consciousness is primary, or at least as real as the material kind of stuff. And then that view has to be nuanced, okay? I have a view of the mind, for instance, that my brain is sort of like a local computer, and it handles a lot of the evaluation and thinking decision making as I take in stuff with my senses and so forth. And the materialistic view is that's the end of the story. But I think our minds are connected to some wider kind of consciousness, and that occasionally influences what we're doing. We need to study that. It's like you could study automobiles with no reference to drivers. And there's lots you could find out, but unless you understand something about drivers and their intentions, you're going to miss an awful lot of what an automobile is about.
Have you had any personal experiences that encourage you to explore what the deeper nature of meditative states might be?
I wish I could say I'm so good at meditating that all sorts of wonderful experiences have happened, but I'm not. And in fact, I tried to learn meditation off and on for 20 years or so and eventually decided it must take some special talent that I don't have. And I gave it up. But I was already interested in these wider dimensions and in altered states of consciousness in general. I'd been a subject in experiments with psychedelic drugs, for instance, so I knew there could be fantastic things experienced, and some people could get there through meditation. Eventually, I met a meditation teacher that actually showed me how to meditate. You want the actual story?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I was at a scientific conference on unorthodox ways of healing with electromagnetic waves and things like that. And somebody had asked a friend of his who was a meditation teacher to come and give a talk about meditation, a man named Shinzen Young. And I went to hear him talk because I'd given up on meditation by then, but, I had to keep up with things. And as he talked, it was like the hairs on the back of my neck started to stand up. Because something in me said, this man actually knows what he's talking about from direct experience. And I realized that I'd heard a lot of famous meditation teachers talk, but I didn't know from the way they were whether they'd actually experienced these things or whether they were just the beneficiaries of 1,000 years of better and better writings on how to teach meditation. I was impressed enough that when he offered to teach meditation classes at 6 o'clock in the morning in the winter, which was ridiculous for me, it skipped before breakfast even, I went, and he had a way of teaching meditation in sort of stepwise things that I started meditating. I started being able to do some of these things. And since then, I have followed his experiments, I always mean to call them, because he is experimenting with different ways to teach. He knows all the old traditional ways, but he's also a student of how Buddhism, which is where he was trained, has had to change to adapt to different cultures historically as it's moved in. And he's working on that adaptation, and the man's a genius. I won't call him a teacher with a capital T. I mean, he's also my buddy, and he's a very real human being. But I think he's at some stage of enlightenment, traditional Buddhist thing, and he knows how to teach this stuff. I've just had an inquiry from a friend who's a professor somewhere who would like to meditate, but he just doesn't know how to do it. I'm going to recommend that he contact Shinzen Young, because Shinzen's also quite an intellectual. And I figured if somebody that intellectual could learn to meditate, maybe there's hope for me. The unusual, unique, and valuable effect of this IONS program on meditation is that it's making us try to look at the things that are actually an important part of meditation as a search for meaning that are pretty much being ignored in mainstream research. Again, it's nice that meditation could be shown to help you sleep better, and that it reduces stress at least as much as a nap does. I nap myself, it works very well. But it's this deeper search for meaning that we really have to look at. This is I can't say no, but probably very few human beings ever put in thousands of hours of training to learn how to meditate because they thought, it'll make me a little more efficient at my job or a little less responsive to stress. They hope to find some deeper spiritual meaning in life. That's what this is about. And it's meaning that is essential if the human race is not to destroy itself. If all we've got is material gratification, that's a zero-sum game. If you get it, then it's not there for me. But if people could learn to meditate efficiently, and I think it's not efficient at the present time, and tap into this deeper spiritual meaning, there could be deeper satisfactions in life that don't depend on using material resources as rapidly, as greedily as possible.